Imagine you're deep underground, the only light coming from your headlamp, and the only sound is your own breathing. For extreme cavers, this is a paradise. But sometimes, paradise can turn into a living nightmare. This is the story of two caving expeditions that went terribly wrong, pushing human endurance to its absolute limit. Our first story takes us to the Plura Cave in Norway, a massive underwater system that tempts divers from all over the world. It's known for its stunning beauty, but also for its unforgiving nature. In February 2014, a team of 5 experienced Finnish divers decided to tackle a challenging traverse through the cave. For one of them, Kai Kinkanen, this was personal. He had been part of a previous expedition where a friend had tragically died in the very same cave. He was returning to honor his friend and to face his own fears. The plan was ambitious. They would dive in through one entrance, navigate the submerged tunnels, and exit from another point. A journey of over 2 kilometers that had only been completed a handful of times. The team was well prepared, carrying heavy equipment including multiple gas cylinders and scooters. To help them move through the water, they began their descent into the icy dark waters. The first part of the dive went smoothly. They marveled at the ethereal beauty of the cave's formations, the beams of their lights cutting through the darkness. But Plura is a deceptive beast. The deeper they went, the more complex the passages became. At a depth of over 110 meters, disaster struck. One of the divers, Harri Watarinen, became entangled in his own equipment line. In the crushing pressure and freezing water, panic is a diver's worst enemy. Jari struggled, but the more he fought, the more entangled he became. His breathing became erratic, and he quickly consumed his limited gas supply. His teammates tried desperately to help, but at that depth, every second is critical. Any exertion dramatically increases gas consumption and the risk of nitrogen narcosis, a state of confusion often called the rapture of the deep. Tragically, they couldn't save him. Jari ran out of air and perished. The team was devastated, but their ordeal was far from over. They were still deep inside the cave, grieving and low on gas. As they tried to make their way back, a second diver, Harri Usim, he also succumbed to the extreme conditions and died. Now, the 3 survivors faced a horrifying choice. They were exhausted, emotionally shattered, and running critically low on breathable air. They had to leave their friends behind to save themselves. The ascent was a grueling, hours-long process. They had to make long decompression stops to allow the built-up nitrogen to safely leave their bodies. Rushing would mean certain death from decompression sickness, or the bends. When they finally surfaced, they were met with a grim reality. A massive rescue operation was launched, involving divers from Britain and Norway. But the authorities deemed the recovery of the bodies too dangerous. The cave was officially closed, a permanent tomb for the 2 lost divers. But for the survivors, this was unacceptable. They couldn't bear the thought of leaving their friends behind in the dark, silent depths. So, they hatched a secret plan. Defying the authorities, they assembled a new team of their most trusted friends, a recovery team, and prepared for a clandestine mission. 6 weeks after the tragedy, they returned to Plura under the cover of darkness. They knew the risks better than anyone. They were going back into the place that had nearly killed them, to retrieve the bodies of their fallen comrades. This mission was not about adrenaline or glory. It was about honor and closure. This secret recovery dive was meticulously planned. They used different gas mixes and modified their equipment, learning from the fatal mistakes of the previous attempt. The dive was emotionally and physically draining. They had to face the bodies of their friends, secure them, and begin the long, slow journey back to the surface. It was a somber, silent task performed in the crushing blackness of the cave. Against all odds, they succeeded. They brought their friends home. The entire operation was documented and later became the subject of a powerful film called Diving into the Unknown. It's a raw, unflinching look at the bonds of friendship and the incredible risks people will take for one another. The Plura Cave incident stands as a stark reminder of the fine line between adventure and tragedy. Now, let's travel from the icy waters of Norway to the rugged mountains of to a place known as the Everest of the Caves, the Verjovkina, or Verjo Cave. At over 2,200 meters deep, it is the deepest known cave on Earth. For cavers, reaching its bottom is the ultimate prize. In August 2018, a team of Russian cavers embarked on an expedition to explore its furthest reaches. This wasn't a journey for the faint of heart. It involves days of rappelling down vertical shafts, squeezing through tight passages, and navigating a labyrinth of tunnels, all while hauling heavy gear. The deeper you go, the more hostile the environment becomes. The air gets thick with carbon dioxide, the temperature hovers just above freezing, and the darkness is absolute. The team established a series of underground camps, a lifeline back to the surface. Their goal was to reach the bottom chamber, known as the Last Nemo Station. After days of grueling descent, they finally made it. They were over 2 kilometers beneath the surface of the Earth, a place fewer people have been than the surface of the Moon. They celebrated their achievement, but their journey was only half over. The climb back up is just as dangerous, if not more so. Fatigue sets in, and a single mistake can be fatal. As they began their ascent, something completely unexpected happened on the surface. A massive rainstorm, a freak weather event, was pummeling the mountains above. Water began to pour into the cave system. What was once a network of dry passages and small streams transformed into a raging underground river. A sudden, violent flood was tearing through the cave. The team was split up at different depths, with some cavers at a camp around the 1,300-meter mark. The water rose with terrifying speed, submerging entire sections of the cave they had just passed through. The cavers were trapped. Their ropes were now useless against the torrents of water, and their camps were being washed away. The sound was deafening, a constant roar of water echoing through the chambers. For the cavers at the lowest camp, the situation was dire. They were the furthest from the exit, and their only way out was now a deadly waterfall. The water level rose so high that it submerged their camp completely. They were forced to climb higher onto ledges, huddling together in the cold and dark, listening to the floodwaters rage below them. They had limited food, and their lights were their only comfort. But the batteries wouldn't last forever. They were in a race against time, trapped deep within the earth, with no way of knowing if the water would continue to rise. Days passed. Their food ran out. They were cold, wet, and utterly exhausted. It's hard to imagine the psychological toll of being in such a situation. Complete darkness, constant noise, and the feeling of being buried alive. Miraculously, after several days, the storm on the surface subsided, and the floodwaters began to recede. Slowly, painstakingly, the cavers started to find their way back up, assessing the damage and trying to reconnect with their teammates. The cave was a changed place, filled with debris and newly carved channels. But the tragedy was not over. As one of the groups was making their ascent, they made a grim discovery. They found the body of another caver, a member of a separate team that had been exploring the cave at the same time. He had been caught in the flood at a lower depth and didn't stand a chance. The Vario Cave flood was a 1 in 100-year event. It showed that even with the best planning and experience, Mother Nature is always in control. The cavers who survived were incredibly lucky, but they left the cave forever changed, carrying the memory of the immense power locked deep within the earth. Both the Plura Cave disaster and the Vario Cave flood highlight the extreme dangers of this sport. These aren't just stories of survival. They are stories of human resilience, of frenzy, and of the profound respect we must have for the hidden, powerful worlds that lie beneath our feet. They push the boundaries of exploration, but sometimes the price of discovery is devastatingly high. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more tales from the edge of human endeavor. Stay safe, and see you next time.